Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the 2023 ACRL Instruction Section New Member Orientation. This orientation is being hosted by the Membership Committee of the Instruction Section, and we are really happy that all of you could join us today. The orientation will consist of approximately 30 minutes of presentations, followed by time for you to ask questions. Also, please feel free to post questions in the chat so that we can respond to those at the end of the presentation. I'd like to start by having some of our speakers introduce themselves. So we'll start with Carrie Forbes, who is the Instruction Section Chair.
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carrie Forbes. I am the current chair of the instruction section, and my day job, I am the university librarian at Southern Oregon University.
Great, thanks, Carrie. Next, we have Nicole Pagowski, who is the vice chair of the instruction section.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you today. I'm Nicole Pagowski, current vice chair. And I'm an associate curriculum and pedagogy librarian at the University of Arizona.
Thanks, Nicole. And Jane Hammonds, who is the instruction section membership committee chair.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. As Catherine said, my name is Jane Hammonds. I am the teaching and learning engagement librarian at The Ohio State University, and I am the current chair of the membership committee that organized this webinar today.
Great, thanks, Jane. I'd also like to introduce the members of the Orientation and Promotion Subcommittee who planned and promoted today's session. Leah Casey, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Leah Casey. I'm an education and research librarian at University of California in San Francisco.
Thanks, Leah. Next is Brianne Markowski. Brianne, would you like to say a few words?
Welcome, everyone. My name is Brianne Markowski, as Catherine said, and I am the head of teaching and outreach at the University of Northern Colorado. And we're very happy that you were all able to join us today.
Great. And last is me, Catherine Tingelstad. I'm the head of instruction and curriculum engagement at UNC Charlotte. So today we're going to be talking about what the instruction section does. We'll share some information about the resources that the section offers. We're going to talk about the structure of the section, and we'll touch on some of the ways that you can get involved in the instruction section. Again, at the end of the presentation, we'll have plenty of time for questions. Oops, I went a little too far. All right, so let's start by talking about what the instruction section does. We'll begin by talking about the mission statement. You can find the mission statement on the instruction section's website. The statement reads, "The instruction section of the Association of College and Research Libraries enhances the ability of academic and research librarians to advance learning, teaching, and research with respect to information literacy in higher education." So let's think about how the instruction section can support you and your work in your instruction at your library. All right, on this slide, you see a question that we would like for you to answer. And actually, this is something that we're not going to do a poll for, but maybe just think about this. These are some of the resources that are available through the instruction section. And I'd like you to think about which of these resources you've already used in your work. So have you visited the Primo site and used any of the resources there? Have you looked at any of the information literacy in the disciplines guides? Have you taken a look at the featured teaching librarian profiles? Have you read about the instructional technologies, tips, and trends? And have you used the ACRL framework for information literacy sandbox? We're going to be talking about these resources a little more throughout this presentation. So let's talk a little bit more about what we do. Our work is focused on multiple areas, including pedagogy, technology, the higher education environment, and professional development. We support pedagogy through tools such as the Primo database of instructional materials and the Framework Sandbox, which has a multitude of ideas for how to connect with the framework for information literacy for higher education. We also share information on teaching with technology in our instruction technologies, tips, and trends. Additionally, we provide webinars and other resources to support professional development. We share resources, tools, and best practices for instructional programs in an academic environment. This slide offers some interesting information about the ACRL instruction section. The section is the second largest section in ACRL after the university library section, with approximately 2,900 members. Our members work at a variety of institutions, including small private colleges, large research institutions, and community colleges. And you can see some of the titles that the various members of the section have, and they include titles such as instruction coordinator, head of teaching and learning, and critical pedagogy librarian. So throughout this orientation, we're going to hear from a couple of instruction section members about their experiences. And I'd like to introduce Chelsea Heinbach, who is featured in our first member profile.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Heinbach, and I'm a teaching and learning librarian at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I joined and what I get out of working with the ACRL instruction section. I joined when I was a new librarian. I joined almost maybe exclusively for the mentorship program. I was really excited about the opportunity to connect with other instruction librarians in the field. I was at a library where there weren't any other librarians focused solely on instruction, so that was a really big deal for me. And after I participated in that mentoring program, which was really amazing, and I still keep in touch with my mentor, 6 years later, I joined the awards committee, and I worked on the awards committee from secretary to chair. So I was on it for quite a few years, and we chose the Brockman Instruction Publication of the Year award winners each year. And I absolutely loved my time on this committee. I connected with amazing scholars and librarians whose work I had the honor to, recognize, and the opportunity to also advocate for and implement a more inclusive review process. So I really valued that opportunity to kind of advocate for change and make change happen. And I did that at an instruction section committee. And I also met really amazing colleagues through that work. My past vice chair and I still stay in touch and talk about our research projects. And I've also connected her to students that I know who are interested in library school. And it really gave me the opportunity to also stay up to date on research in the instruction, area. Obviously, we're all busy. We have a lot going on. We do our best to stay really engaged with research, but this was a really cool opportunity to do it through service to the profession as well. And it was just really meaningful to have the opportunity to honor others in the field and at the national level, which I really only was able to do because of my engagement with the ACRL instruction section. I'm now a part of the management and leadership committee of the instruction section. I'm super excited to see what it's like to convene and advance conversations around leadership and management in instructional spaces in particular. And I overall just found it really valuable throughout all of my different ways of engaging with the instruction section to have a space that is focused on libraries, sure, but the unique challenges and opportunities that come with being a teaching librarian and someone who's focused on that. So I found it really valuable. It's changed a few times, and I've found new things to love about it every time. So it's a little bit about my experience.
Thank you, Chelsea, for sharing about what you get out of the membership in the instruction section. So I am going to be talking a little bit about some of the resources that the instruction section provides, including resources for staying up to date with what's happening with the section, resources for engaging with other members, and finally, some resources that are available for professional support. Next slide, please. So there are a few resources that the instruction section puts out that can help you stay up to date with what's going on in the section and with instruction more broadly. So for example, these include the IS blog, the newsletter, and ALA Connect. The newsletter, which is shown here, comes out twice a year directly to your inbox, and it features articles, trends, and updates from the instruction section. The blog features a variety of articles, most notably I would say are the new member and teaching librarian spotlights, and you can find the discussion pages for the instruction section on ALA Connect. Next slide, please. So ALA Connect's discussion pages are full of great information about instruction, and ALA Connect is a place that you can go to ask questions and engage in conversations with other members of the instruction section. So other instruction librarians, teaching librarians, folks who are involved with instruction at their libraries. You can also find the instruction section on Facebook and Twitter, where there are links to webinars, podcasts, articles, and information about what's going on in our section. Next slide, please. Perfect. Finally, let's talk about some of the resources that IS provides for professional support. So Catherine mentioned some of these in her introduction about what the section does, but just to talk a little bit more about these resources. So there are two sites that the section puts together that you can use to find instructional content. So those are Primo and the Framework Sandbox. Primo is the peer-reviewed instructional materials online database. So this is a great place to go if you are looking for information literacy tutorials that you might be able to adapt for your library. And then the Framework Sandbox is a really great place to go if you're looking for ideas on how to use the framework for information literacy for higher education in your instructional settings. You can share your own activities and teaching resources here too. So if you've created something great and you want to share it with other librarians, this is a place that you can do that, and you can browse and search and see what others have made too. So next, I want to highlight the information literacy in the disciplines guide that is on the ACRL website. So this guide contains information literacy standards and curricula that have been developed by accrediting agencies, professional associations, and institutions of higher education. The guide is arranged by discipline, and in addition to the standards and guidelines, you'll also find research about information literacy in the disciplines and adaptable instructional materials. Next, in addition to these resources to support pedagogy, IS also creates resources to support adoption of new technologies. So the Instructional Technologies Committee publishes instructional technologies, tips, and trends 4 times a year. Each volume discusses new, evolving, or even familiar technologies that can be applied to the library instruction setting. The most recent issue addressed social annotation tools, and looking back through the past couple years of issues, the committee has explored gamification, Zoom for library instruction, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and how that relates to instructional technology. Another IS committee publication is the 5 Things Learning About publication, which comes out once a year on a specific topic and highlights 5 things about that area. So in the past, this publication was a little more technology specific, but in more recent years, it's been renamed and it now also includes under-discussed or timely topics relevant to library instruction, such as contemplative pedagogy, which was the 2022 topic. And finally, IS also hosts a variety of webinars throughout the year, and archived webinars can be accessed through our website. So now I am going to turn it over to Carrie, who is going to talk about IS structure.
Great, thank you so much. Next slide, please. So we want to give you an overview of the instruction section and how we fit organizationally within the American Library Association. So this fun slide you see before you kind of gives you an overview of the membership governance. So I'm sure that most of you know the American Library Association is the overall organization. There are a bunch of different organizational structures under them. There are divisions, roundtables, chapters, and affiliate organizations. The Association of College and Research Libraries, which we are under, is one of the 11 divisions. So the Association of College and Research Libraries then has their own organizational structure. They also have various task forces and interest groups and committees and chapters. So that's a common question that I get from members who are trying to discern the difference between ACRL division level committees versus the instruction section. So the Association of College and Research Libraries does have task forces and committees that are division level committees. The instruction section is, of course, a section under ACRL, and then we have our own organizational structure as well. You're probably familiar with some of the other sections, like the instruction section. So the biggest one is the university library section. The instruction section itself then has an entire organizational structure. So we report up through the ACRL board, who then reports to the ALA governance organization. And so this just gives you a broad overview of where everybody fits in. And we do quite a lot of work across the various sections of ACRL. And we also work with the division level committees of ACRL. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an example of the organizational structure of the instruction section. So within the instruction section, we have a number of committees who do the work of the section. You can see them listed here. It's a variety of things. So the different committees support the resources. So many of those resources, such as Primo and the Information Literacy Framework Sandbox, have committees whose work it is to support those. And then we have other committees who do sort of the business of the section. So the membership committee is responsible for doing the orientations and onboarding of new members to the organization. So pretty much anything that you would think to organize and run a volunteer organization like the instruction section, there's a committee that does that. I will point out just one quick thing about, you'll see some of the awards committees listed on you here currently. There is a process going on right now at the division level of ACRL where they're examining the process of how awards are given across all the various sections. So that does include the instruction section. And so currently our awards committees are not populated. They're paused while the ACRL division level committee does that work. Next slide, please. Okay, so within all of those committees, we have an organizational structure for decision making and moving forward with policies and different resources that we create. So one of the larger decision-making bodies within the instruction section is advisory council. So advisory council includes the committee chairs and vice chairs. So all of those committees that were listed on the last page have a chair and a vice chair. They are part of advisory council. We also have what we call some ex officio members. They are in administrative positions. So they are doing the work, like we have 2 website administrators. We have a person that puts together our newsletter. We have a publications editor. Those positions are also members of advisory council. And then we also have the executive committee, which are the elected positions for the chair and vice chair and members at large that you all as members vote on every year. And then we do not have any task forces operating at the moment, but if we have any chairs of the task forces, they would also be members of advisory council. Advisory council generally meets about twice a year to check in and share what they're doing on their various committees. And then occasionally, if we have a big decision across the section that we need to talk about, we will bring that forward to advisory council. So an example of that may be, I'm struggling to remember the exact year, but the instruction section was one of the first sections of ACRL that went completely virtual. We used to have in-person business meetings at ALA annual. We're now a totally virtual section. Before we made that move and presented that to the board to ask if we could be a virtual section, that discussion went forward to advisory council so they could get feedback from all of their committees and then bring it forward for discussion. Next slide, please. This is the example of the structure of the executive committee. So that's what many of the members are here today. So all of these positions are elected. So we have a chair, a vice chair, the past chair. You don't get out of it that easily. You're the vice chair, then the chair, then the past chair, then the past chair. So we still keep you in the loop for your wisdom. And we also have a secretary who takes the minutes and keeps us all organized, an archivist, and then members at large positions whose main job is to liaise with our various committees. Next slide, please. This is just a rough organization of what the various members of the executive committee do. So as the chair of the committee, I schedule and run our executive meetings, and I also coordinate we have both a staff liaison to ACRL, that's Lauren, who's helping us run our webinar today. And then we also have a liaison to the ACRL board who we coordinate with. Nicole, the vice chair position is the position that makes the committee appointments for the year. So Nicole will share more about that coming up, but that's the big job of the vice chair. And then we also touch base about setting the agenda and making decisions for the organization. And then the past chair, Veronica, is there to basically help us remember all the procedures and the processes and keep us on track. And then the Dudley Award Committee is an awards committee. It's one of the ones that's currently paused at the moment. The past chair also usually chairs that awards committee. Next slide, please. And I'm now going to turn it over to Jane, who's going to do another member profile.
Sorry. Thank you, Carrie. So again, my name is Jane Hammonds. I am the teaching and learning librarian at The Ohio State University. So I just wanted to share a little bit about why I joined instruction section and what I have gotten out of it. So I've been involved in instruction section since 2019. And that was the time when I moved into my current position. And it is a tenure track position. And so it does come with expectations that you will be involved in service at the national level. So I started to look around at different options for becoming more involved. And I thought the instruction section really fit with my background. It really fit with my interests. My primary focus is really on information literacy. And so that really aligned well with what the goals of the instruction section were. So I originally was involved my first year. I think I was on like a task force, but then since then I've been involved in several different committees. So I was part for a couple of years of the Framework for Information Literacy Sandbox Committee. I was part of the Information Literacy and the Disciplines Committee, and then also I've been involved in Membership Committee, and I'm now chair of that committee. And I have found being involved in ACRL instruction section really beneficial to me in several ways, and just really, I have felt really positive about being involved, especially seeing some of the things that we've been able to do to kind of support the profession. So as I mentioned, I was on the Framework for Information Literacy Sandbox Committee, and we had a chance to really start to support the building up of that as a resource. So we held several webinars where we got folks involved, we got folks registered to using, and starting to build the number of resources in there. So whenever I go to that site, and I see that new resources have been added, it makes me happy to recognize that I've been, played a small part in supporting the profession and making sure that those resources are available to folks. And very similar, as I mentioned, I was on the Information Literacy and the Disciplines Committee, and I was part of the committee when we transferred the guides from the format that they were in, basically on the IS website, over to the current format that they're now in LibGuides on the website. And again, it's really important to me to see that I was actually able to point to something and say that I'm doing something that's making a difference, maybe in a small ways, in some ways, but I'm supporting the profession. I'm supporting other librarians who I know may be going out and saying, I'm not sure how to, a new librarian coming in, I'm not sure how to teach the Framework for Information Literacy. Well, there's this resource that's available to you. I'm looking for great lessons plans. Well, here's Prima, there's a great resource that's available. So I have found it professionally fulfilling to be involved in instruction section, knowing that I am, making a difference. I'm helping to support the profession, and I'm also supporting my own goals as a librarian and the need that I have in my particular role to develop into a leader in the profession. So I was really excited about the chance to become vice chair and then chair of this committee as a way to grow my own leadership capabilities. So that's just a little bit about why I volunteered and what I've gotten out of it. So I'll go ahead and we can pass it on to the next slide.
Hi, okay, that's me. So we'll talk a little bit about getting involved. Next slide, please. So the volunteer form is open currently, and we're accepting applications through February 28th, and we're excited to have you volunteer for our committees. If you go to the link that's on the slide, you should be able to put in your application to volunteer. And this is the volunteer form across ALA and ACRL. So once you get into the form, you'll need to drill down into ACRL and then go to the instruction section to volunteer for IS specifically. It'll ask you a few questions about your interests, your background, if you've done any other committee service, and it will go through the list of the different committees we have, and you'll see an option to volunteer for whichever committee or committees you're interested in. If you're willing to be on any committee, there's also the option to volunteer for any open slot within the instruction section. And that option is highly recommended, as we have one of the most competitive appointment processes with way more slots than volunteers. And some of our committees are incredibly popular and everybody wants to be on those. But if you're willing to be more flexible, then you're more likely to get on a committee. We do try to match as many people as we can. Appointments generally start July 1st and they run on a fiscal year calendar. They're generally 2-year appointments. So if you're appointed to a committee, it would be July 2023 through June of 2025. And so for my role as vice chair in making these appointments, decisions are based on what openings we have. So we roughly have about 10 people on each of our committees, and some people are rotating off while some people are continuing. And we try to keep a good balance between more experienced librarians who have been on instruction section committees before, and then balance that out with people who are new to the instruction section or new to librarianship. And we're also working to expand diversity, being inclusive of BIPOC librarians and those from marginalized groups, people from community colleges and smaller colleges, and making sure that a variety of organizations, experiences, and identities are represented. And as Carrie had said, as a reminder, ACRL has paused our awards committees, and that pause is continuing through this year. So although the awards committees are listed on the form currently, please don't volunteer for those. If you do, we'll need to find a different option for you, but it'll be more seamless if you don't select those in the first place. But hopefully they will resume again next year, but we will keep an eye on the news for that. And then we have administrator positions. So these are open, but not available through the volunteer form. So you need to apply by sending in a letter indicating your interest. So if you have any background in website or newsletter editing or social media, we have several of those positions that are open. And Carrie had mentioned those before, the ex officio positions. And these are also 2-year appointments, but we appoint people based on their background. And because of the pandemic and differing levels of ability for engagement, there's an even greater need than there was before to have these volunteers. So if you have any of those skill sets or you're eager to learn, we'd be happy to train you. So please reach out to me if you have any questions about those. And next slide, please. So this is a bit about just the benefits of volunteering, which you've heard from the example member profiles speak about their experiences. You know, it's a great way to meet other people in the section, to learn more about instruction. And I have met a lot of people that I've continued to collaborate over the years myself, and I've been very grateful for the opportunity to be in the instruction section. And to just briefly go through some of these main points here. Community work is immensely helpful for meeting others in the field. As I said, I've met a lot of future and ongoing collaborators. You can meet people to work with on research or other service, or even future colleagues or coworkers. Volunteering furthers librarianship, and you can help academic librarians make an impact on teaching and learning across the field, which we've heard from both example member profiles. And you have the opportunity to gain leadership experience in a variety of ways. And you could start off with a more entry-level position, such as secretary, which is what we recommend to new members, where you can then automatically move into a two-year member role on the same committee and work your way up toward greater leadership from there. And volunteering also helps you learn more about how ALA and ACRL function, and you can see and be involved behind the scenes to see the inner workings. And last, volunteering can help you meet your service requirements or goals. If as Jane mentioned, being in a tenure track position, that could be an expectation. So if you have promotion and tenure requirements or equivalent at your university, this service work can help with that. And this committee work is part of national impact and can add to your promotion packet. And that is all I had for that. So next slide, please.
So, hey everyone, this is Leah. We'll take this opportunity to respond to any questions, and I may be forwarding the questions to Carrie and Nicole and Jane. But any questions anyone has, pop them in the chat or feel free to turn your mic on as well.
While we're waiting, I will mention that we did have one question in the chat in case folks didn't see that. It came a little bit earlier asking if those resources are for members only or can non-members access. And there is a reply, you know, a lot of the resources such as the Primo website, the Framework Sandbox, the Information Literacy and the Disciplines, those are all available for anyone to use, so you don't have to be a member to use. Other things like that ALA Connect, you do have to be a member of ALA to be able to get into ALA Connect. So just mention that. And in case anyone was wondering, if you're not sure to join instruction section, you do have to join ALA and ACRL. So. Question came in, I'll pass it on to Nicole. So if interested in volunteering for a particular committee, how can you discern where more members are needed or which group is full?
Unfortunately, they can't really be determined until I go through everything as I'm learning. And Carrie, please add anything if I miss this, because I'm still learning the process as we work toward that. But I don't think you're able to see that. So, just choosing your top choices, but being flexible and open to other committees is probably the best way to go if you want to make sure that you're appointed somewhere.
Yeah, if you do have a current membership to ALA, you can kind of get a little sense. If you look at the list of committees, you can look at the roster and it does have the appointment slots. So you can see like if there's a lot of people that will be rotating off at the end of this year. You can kind of get a sense of which committees might have more openings than others, but people can apply to continue on a committee. So it's not like a 100%, like you can't like predict exactly. It depends on how many volunteers we get for different things. I will just put in a plug for what Nicole was mentioning earlier. We do have some committees that are super competitive, like the Primo committee, the Inclusive Pedagogies committee. There are some that like everybody wants to be on. And so those are much more competitive. Other committees that do like sort of the business of the section. So I'll giggle at the membership committee, but the membership committee maybe doesn't sound as fun and sexy as peer-reviewed instructional materials, but there is often a need for members for the different committees to do the organization of the section. So if you are open to that, I would suggest looking at those committees because we always have a real need for those areas.
We have another question in the chat here. What opportunities or resources are available for those who want to move into instruction from other roles, like access services, for example? That's a really good question. Can I pass this over to Carrie?
Sure. I mean, I can give my recommendation. So a couple of things that I think someone could consider. One is we have a really excellent mentorship program. So if you were wanting to move into the field of instruction, I think signing up for the mentorship programming and having a mentor who's currently an instruction librarian would be one way to do that. They could help at least guide you and tell you, what that sort of work is like. They might be able to make some recommendations for how you could build your resume and your skill set to apply for those types of jobs. So that's one recommendation. My second recommendation would be that the instruction section, as well as ACRL, actually offers a number of resources, including webinars that offer like teaching skills. And so you can start to build up your skill set in that way as well. And then if you are currently an ALA member, I think posting those types of questions on ALA Connect with the instruction section, we are a very active and engaged group, and I think that you would get a lot of feedback. Conferences, if you have the travel funds to do that, are also a great way, or virtual conferences. I think a lot of people would be able to give you advice if you had questions about transitioning. We do have a number of members that I think that have made that transition into teaching, and so they would give some great advice about that. I don't know, Nicole, you can feel free to add if you think I missed anything.
No, that was great. You know, I think the other resources that we have as well, like looking through Primo and just seeing how people are approaching instruction could be some good insight as well.
I just had another idea of, in addition to attending conferences, there are probably local organizations within your area that might be outside of instruction section. For example, I'm in San Francisco. There is a Northern California instruction conference, and I'm blanking on the name, but I'll pop it in the chat when I remember. So maybe like do a little Googling, see if there's some local librarians that you can connect with as well. Oh, and we do have another question for Carrie. When does the IS mentoring program begin a new cycle? Is it safe to assume it's October to June? And it looks like this is someone you know, Carrie.
Yes. Hi, Natalia. You know, that is a really great question. I do believe they've already started the cycle for this year. They put out a call generally in early fall for mentors and mentees, and then they match people up for the rest of that year. So they have already done that for this year. That is not to say, however, that you couldn't reach out to the current chair of the mentoring committee to ask. I do think they often, that program is really great and they often get a lot of volunteers. So you could, if you're interested in doing that, you could reach out to them and see if they had some people that they weren't able to pair up. They might still be able to fit you in for this year. But generally, I would look for that call in early fall, around October.
Okay, another question coming in. I have a question about the volunteer form. The first question asks, where else have you volunteered for a committee appointment? Does that refer to other ACRL committees outside instruction section, or do we list all the IS committees we're volunteering for? Good question. Can I pass this to Nicole?
I could take a guess at that, but maybe Carrie knows the actual answer, so I'll let her answer first.
Yeah, so I would say it's probably helpful to know why we ask that question. So two things to know. One is that we're interested in your past experience on ACRL committees because ALA does have a guideline. They ask that members across all of the ALA organizations are on no more than 3 committees at one time with the same appointment. So they are interested in knowing not just existing ACRL committees that you're on, but also other ALA committees so that, you know, we can spread the love. And then, so yes, do tell us other ACRL committees that you're on or any current committees you're on. We are also interested in knowing if you're on any other regional or national committees. Just giving us a sense of your committee experience will help Nicole know the best fit, right? So if you don't have much committee experience at all, she might want to put you on a committee with a lot of other experienced people. So you'll get some mentorship and guidance in committee work. But if you have a ton of experience, you just haven't been on the instruction section, we might be more likely to put you on a committee where you can make a real impact based on your past experience. You do not necessarily have to list all the IS committees you're volunteering for. It's asking about what current committees you're on or what past committee experience you have. There is a little note section. If you're volunteering for lots of stuff outside of the instruction section, you might put a little note there just to tell Nicole so she knows to check because we do try to make sure people aren't on more than 3 committees when we do the appointment process. I hope I answered that question. It's very complicated. The appointment process is super fun. If any of you have a real attention to detail, I highly recommend that you look into taking that position at some point. You get to learn a lot about ACRL and how it operates.
Are there any other questions that people have? Great. Did anyone on the panel, any of the presenters want to say anything in closing?
I just wanted to thank the membership committee for all their work in organizing this orientation, and thank all of you for attending and for being interested. Nicole and I often like to remind people that we are a volunteer organization. While many of us have requirements as part of our job to be involved in service, we are all still volunteering for this, and the instruction section is really very fortunate. We have a lot of really committed, engaged members who do a lot of work on their own time to improve information literacy teaching practices and share. So I just want to give a shout out to everyone and thank you for all the work that everybody's doing, or for the future work that you may do if you volunteer for a committee.
Great. Well, thank you also to all of the presenters. If anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. You see Carrie's and Nicole's email addresses on the screen. And we hope that you are inspired by this today. And we thank you very much for being here.